This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Do you play FanDuel and feel like you aren't creating consistent money-making lineups? Go over to the DFS Doctors on Twitter at the DFS Doctors and DM them with promo code Detroit Sports to get a free trial for their analytically formulated 70% lifetime profit rate NFL and NBA lineups. The whole purpose of playing daily fantasy sports is to get out there and compete and give yourself a chance to win. So go over to the DFS Doctors. Let them help you. They have analysts on staff that look at the best optimal lineup that you can put out there to win money. So why not take advantage? At the DFS Doctors, promo code Detroit Sports.
CBD is a game changer sweeping the nation. This hemp extract is the natural way to elevate your mood, eliminate aches and pains, reduce anxiety, and keep you sleeping all night long. It can even cut your workout recovery time in half. Get in the game today with 20% off all orders of CBD and lavender products from Lavender Lane, a lavender farm located right here in Milan, Michigan. Just go to lavenderlanemi.com today and enter coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order. Guys, look, these amazing products are infused with calming lavender to maximize their effectiveness, meaning your CBD items only take minutes to take effect, which is way quicker than those pills you were about to swallow. On top of it, they are perfect for men and women. Lavender Lane has lab-tested CBD creams, tinctures, and roll-ons that are perfect for any situation, even if you're on the go. Put your health back in your hands by heading over to lavenderlanemi.com and entering coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order of CBD and lavender products. What do you have to lose? Your satisfaction is guaranteed or your money back. So if you need lavender gifts for your loved ones or just looking for the natural way to ease your discomfort with CBD, go to lavenderlanemi.com and use coupon code Detroit to unlock these miraculous benefits of CBD and lavender. That's lavenderlanemi.com. And remember, use coupon code DETROIT for 20% off your CBD and lavender products from Michigan's own Lavender Lane.
And welcome to the latest edition of Sundays with Dominic and Vito. My brother is not here with us, and he's never, but I am here. Vito Geronimo Churcos, I'd like to say. Live, recording it from the Delta Resort. We have two guests, okay? We have the professor who likes 2% milk, and Perry Farrell. Perry A. Farrell, by the way. Perry, how are you doing?
The Delta Resort.
The Delta Resort. I love calling this the Delta Resort. Perry's checked in a couple of times now at the Delta Resort.
Yeah, and I ran at my own risk.
Just give me you know what? Whatever your bill is, let me know what it is on your way out, all right? And then we have Jared Purcell of MLive.com. So he's a high school sports reporter for MLive.com.
For sure. I don't get a middle initial, though.
You don't today, I guess. Whatever it is, hey, you can tell me what it is.
M, by the way. Yeah.
Jared M. Purcell. But Jared, how long have you actually written now for MLive?
I'm actually in my 10th year now. That's ridiculous.
So he's a vet now. He's a savvy vet. And we're here today on this week's edition of Sundays with Dominic and Vito to discuss Michigan State football hiring Mel Tucker as its next head coach after 1 year for himself as a head man at Colorado, where he went 5-7. But he had some time at Michigan State before as a GA and learned under guys such as Nick Saban and spent 3 years before Colorado as a Georgia defensive coordinator. So now he comes in here, and it was a last-minute hire, pretty much. In the 24th hour, Michigan State got this guy to join them in East Lansing, and nobody saw this coming. But now he is the head man. And just on the surface, guys, to start off here, the discussion, what are your thoughts on Michigan State hiring Mel Tucker? And to Perry A. Farrell first.
Okay, first of all, we know he was their second choice. Luke Fickell was their first choice. And from what we've heard, Jared and I, the Fickell family wasn't really cool on the environment and atmosphere at Michigan State, i.e. Larry Nassar. So Luke Fickell was their first choice, who had worked with Mark D'Antonio in the past. Mark D'Antonio shoved it up Michigan State's butt by leaving the day before the National Signing Day as a stick it to you because he didn't want to quit, but he knew that they were looking for candidates, so he said, okay, take that. So they passed on Mel Tucker the first time, then they had to overpay him to come this time. So you had a time issue, you had a issue of respectability and responsibility. I don't know how good of a coach Mel Tucker is. I know Jaron Mangum, former Cass Tech running back, wasn't happy with him because he left him high and dry down in Colorado. So the whole thing is a mess. And maybe Mel Tucker ended up being a good coach, but I blame Mark D'Antonio, who sounds like he perjured himself in the Curtis Blackwell deposition. I feel bad for those kids now who have to adjust on the run to somebody that they never thought they'd be playing under. And the whole thing is basically a dumpster fire.
So, Jared, to you, Perry spoke his mind there. What do you have to say about this hire and the situation surrounding it, too?
Well, to be honest, I don't think Michigan State fans can complain at this point because the way the situation was there, they could still be looking at this point. I mean, for them to get Tucker, I think it was just the best thing they had available, and it it could have been a lot worse. And to be honest, who knew about Tucker, before he even was in the search? I mean, not a lot of people were paying attention to Colorado. He's kind of an unknown coming in, but the fact that he, did have some Detroit recruits is a big thing. He already has some kind of contact established in Detroit, which I feel like Michigan State was really suffering in. So it's good that he's in, but man, it could have been a lot worse.
Well, State had one Detroit King guy on its roster last year, Tyree Thompson. So one guy, and that's it, from the inner city, throughout the city of Detroit, at least from Detroit King, which, as you guys both know, covering high school sports.
Yeah, and Mangham from Cass Tech.
And Mangham from Cass Tech. Yeah. That's it, though. So it was thin, and the barrel should have been full, right? Full of Cass Tech kids, full of King kids, kids from all over the city of Detroit, and that wasn't the case under D'Antonio in recent memory.
Both schools are having a problem. You got Enzo Jennings going to Penn State, Justin Rogers, Kentucky. You got Malik Carr and the kid from Wall Lake, Hassan,
going to Purdue.
Going to Purdue. You have Rashawn Williams at Indiana. So some of the best players in the country are not only not going to Michigan State, they're not going to Michigan either. And you can have a national recruiting base, but I'm like what Purcell said when he was at Ohio State. We make sure the best kids in Ohio stay home. And Michigan and Michigan State have both failed in that category.
Abdur-Rahman Yassin, who was going to go to Northwestern from Walled Lake Western, now going to Purdue. Malik Carr's going to Purdue. We can name guys endlessly here, right? Rashawn Williams going to Indiana. Penny Boone going to Maryland. These kids should be going to Michigan State. So what the heck happened? And now Mel Tucker's here to clean up this situation, Jared.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that happen. If you want to talk about Michigan first, I mean, it wasn't too long ago when we were looking at a recruiting class where they had 9 of the top 10 kids from Michigan. I believe it was Peoples-Jones' year. And then, everyone was saying that, Michigan's going to be more of a nationally recruiting-based type of school, which I get. And when you have a name like Harbaugh, that's going to happen. However, you can't neglect your own state. And I feel like that's what's been happening. There's been a lot of coaching turnover, too, with underneath Harbaugh. There was a lot of good recruiters. I mean, Tyrone Wheatley was probably the best recruiter they had, and he's no longer with the program. He had a lot of connections within the city, one of the greatest athletes just to come out of high school sports in Michigan ever. And then at Michigan State, I mean, it's quite obvious just all the situations that have come up within the athletic department there, not only with Nasser, but the whole Donnie Corley thing and all the sexual assault problems that are out there, very serious issues, turnover, not only just in the football program because of that stuff, but also the whole administration. It's just a very tumultuous situation over there, and I feel like some bridges have been burned too. In the whole Blackwell thing, he was a major presence for high school athletes. A lot of kids liked him from the city, and once he left the program, I feel like recruiting in Detroit went south. So
it has been a campus-wide issue, like you said. It's not just the Michigan State football program, but Larry Nasser's name, dirty name, being attached to the university. It's killed the university and the morale, and kids have started not going to Michigan State more and more. And real quick, especially after Curtis Blackwell got dismissed as well.
He was made the scapegoat.
And he was through that case,
and that
correct.
wasn't even the case. He was made the scapegoat for Demetri Vance and Donnie Corley and the Austin Robertson kid, who they told Mark, do not recruit this kid. He's a bad dude, and Mark recruited him anyway. So he's getting what he deserves. I have no sympathy for Mark D'Antonio at all.
So the recruiting hasn't been the same since Blackwell left. I mean, he brought in kids like Malik McDowell, who I know maybe didn't live up to the bill completely at State, but still a top-tier prospect from Southfield, and a guy like Donnie Corley, who was part of that case and situation that ensued and got kicked out of Michigan State ultimately, but he was a stud. I mean, remember him his first year, how good he was already? And he played both ways a little bit as well, which is just so impressive, and it tells you how good he was.
And he'll probably be a pro player, but then, like I said, you have all this stuff happening, and Curtis Blackwell's over sound mind, sound body, so all the athletes in the state know about him. So it was a good hire by Mark. You can see why he wanted to hire him, but then he messed it up by making this guy the scapegoat for what happened, and it's obvious that his lawsuit is not going to be thrown out. Curtis has a great case against Mark to be compensated for how he treated him and defaming his character.
So Michigan, by the way, too, and you probably have heard about this too, wanted Curtis Blackwell. Then State got him, and that was a great hire at first. So looking at this now, back to Mel Tucker, how does he clean up this situation? And can it be cleaned up to the extent where he can start getting recruits once again from the city of Detroit, Jared?
Yeah, I think he can clean it up. I mean, Michigan State has traditionally done well in getting in-state recruits, sometimes better than Michigan. It's just all the recent issues at the university have changed things. But with a new guy coming in with a clean slate, and I don't think there were any kids committed from the 21 or 22 classes, so he doesn't have to worry about spending extra resources to make sure kids stay on board. He can go out there and really start establishing relationships. I think it was really great that he brought in Courtney Hawkins to his staff. Not only one of the best Michigan State wide receivers, but he was coach up at Beecher. I think he already has established relationships at Cass and King, which is going to be huge moving forward because those guys just pump out talent left and right. So future is potentially really bright. I mean, if he has the right attitude and he put together a great recruiting class at Colorado too, considering no one talks about Colorado recruiting classes. So I think the potential is very high for him.
And then guys, he's an Energizer bunny. He exudes enthusiasm, right? And when you hear him talk, there's just more energy brought from his voice that he exudes ultimately than Mark D'Antonio in the previous regime at Michigan State.
And Jared mentioned Courtney Hawkins. I covered him in Michigan State, one of the class people that you ever meet. He went to Beecher. He bled Beecher blood. He'll be a tremendous asset, and he'll make sure things are done right, unlike Andre Rison, who was, could have had the same trap, but Andre has he's a head case. But Courtney will do a great job in Detroit, in Flint, in Saginaw, in those areas because people know him and he has a great reputation and he played in the league.
And how about the energy once again, Perry, for you on this one, okay? The energy that Mel Tucker can bring to the recruiting classes coming up here because once again, to my point about Mark D'Antonio, I mean, he left them in a high and dry state.
Energy means nothing if you can't coach.
But recruiting-wise,
Jim
getting the
Harbaugh.
kids to come there. And
If
you're right,
you can't
on the playing
coach,
field.
it don't matter what kind of energy and mediocrity and all that crap. If you can't coach, and if you can't beat Ohio State, and you barely can beat Michigan State, energy means nothing.
I don't know. Harbaugh's still getting some good recruits.
But Penn State's beating him. He's doing all right.
Yeah, I know.
0-5 against
Will he
LSU,
ever?
huh?
That's the question.
Will he ever at this point, right? With Ryan Day now leading the way. And they keep getting recruits and kids out of the state of Michigan once again that Michigan could have gotten. Cameron Martinez, Grant Touton from De La Salle.
Yeah, that stings, doesn't it? Man, Cameron Martinez.
Kid that should be going to Michigan, right?
Yeah, I mean, who knows where he's going to fit in terms of being on the playing field, but I mean, he's just so diverse. That's a kid you want, and he has a great attitude, comes from a great family. He's a leader, and those are the kind of kids you need to recruit into a program that is trying to find ways to win.
Michigan State was a Johnny-come-lately with Cameron Martinez because I talked to him his sophomore and junior year. Michigan did try to recruit him as a slot/DB, but Ohio State was already in there good, and it wasn't going to happen because they waited too late. They should have been on that kid his sophomore year, and they weren't. And you got Cameron Martinez and Greg Touton going to Ohio State, and all these other kids, Williams going to Indiana, and so this year you got Donovan Edwards, and there's a good possibility neither school will get him, and that would be a travesty because he's ranked the number 2 running back in the whole country. So you got and then you got the kids at Clarkson, Spindler, and Dillinger,
the big lineman,
and
Dillinger.
I know
yeah.
Michigan's in on both of them, but
Yep.
you cannot let like Trussell said, you can't let your best kids get out of state and expect your program to thrive.
I want to bring this up now, guys. How about the diversity factor with Mel Tucker? Being an African-American man himself going into the city of Detroit. Does that play a factor, we think, guys, too, and maybe give him a bit of an upper hand against Michigan with Jim Harbaugh? I don't know, but, I know it's been said before regarding this hire of Mel Tucker. What do you guys think?
I think it helps to have someone come where you've come from, man. The fact that there hasn't been, a black head coach in college football in Michigan since
Bobby Williams?
Since Bobby Williams.
Is that what it is now? That's a long time. I was a young boy, young lad back then.
And that's going to pique kids' interest in the city, especially. It just helps that he can have that relationship. He can talk to kids. I think it's a little overdue in terms of getting another head coach to help with diversity here. But as long as he's the right guy for the job, which I think, Michigan State has found someone who can do something pretty well there. It's going to help big time. And I know Perry will have some good opinions on this too.
Perry, how about the relatability factor that Jared brought up? What do you think about that?
If you can't coach,
I know you keep going back to that. Answer the question, man.
It doesn't matter if you're green, yellow, blue, black, or purple. You better be able to coach. You better be able to win, and you better be able to be a presence. So Mel Tucker can be the greatest guy in the world, and they go 2-10, the pressure's on. So I appreciate the fact that you got Ward Manuel's AD at Michigan. That's diversity. And now you have Mel Tucker at Michigan State as a head football coach. But you have to win. Do you understand? I did this in my class yesterday. 50 years ago, Alabama's football program was 100% white. Sam Cunningham at USC went down there and beat the crap out of Alabama, and that's when Barry Bryant started recruiting African-American players. That's 50 years ago. So the terrain and the field has changed a little, but certainly not enough.
And I was bringing up the point, reflecting upon it real quick again, about purely bringing in recruits. Maybe it will play a factor, and maybe with the likes of Jalen Reed, who, I want to bring him up really quick, too, because I talked to Tyrone Spencer the other day, and he's actually part of this podcast. So you guys are on it, and Tyrone Spencer from Detroit King.
What's up, Spence?
So, he actually did. He sat down and talked with me. I was surprised he was willing to do it. I had to pay him $50.
How's it going, Coach?
How's it going, Coach? But, in fact, we did bring up Jalen Reed, guys, and the fact that Michigan hasn't offered him yet. And he's been offered by everybody else and their mother so far, it seems like. Tennessee the other day, USC. I think Texas has talked to him now. Georgia for sure has offered him. All these schools have offered him, guys, and he's right in the backyard of Michigan State and no offer from either school. And that's the problem right there.
Yeah, I don't know what the reasons are for that, but the fact that Michigan and Michigan State are in his backyard, that also is an advantage to those schools if they want to jump in late, because kids oftentimes cite being close to home, or their family can come see them easily, and they've watched these teams growing up, so they're familiar with the programs. It certainly doesn't help that they're letting all these other schools get in before them, but being a backyard school, there's always a little bit of advantage there, no matter when you get in on someone's recruiting, but it's got to happen soon. The spring and summer is a big time for recruits, so I won't be surprised if he picks up offers from one or both schools. But I'm kind of surprised that they haven't yet, but I don't know what they're looking for. So.
Now, you brought up waiting maybe because he is right in their backyard, but I heard from Spencer he feels slighted.
And he should.
Jalen.
He won't go to either school. Now, the case of Khalid Kareem, when Michigan hosted him and his father said they basically treated my son like he wasn't important. And that's why he ended up going to Notre Dame. He would have went to Michigan. He originally committed to Alabama, then he reneged on that, and he would have went to Michigan. But when he got there, Don Brown treated him like he wasn't important. You can't do that to an in-state kid. It's fine if you do it to an out-of-state kid, but you have to take care of your own backyard. And both schools have been guilty of letting too many talented players leave this state because they didn't treat their families or themselves with respect.
Yeah, and I think Michigan State will have an advantage in that, just because now they have a new coaching staff. People will be more understanding of like, oh, I haven't been offered by the school, what the heck? But, oh, a new coach is here and he offers me within his first couple months. Okay, that shows some respect. So I think, Michigan State might have a leg up on him if they want to offer him.
And there is the rejuvenation factor, right, of the program now with the new coaching staff and re-energizing the program, where Michigan, okay, is stale right now, right? I know you've been a critic, hardcore, Perry, of Jim Harbaugh and company.
Okay, I'm saying, how can you say they're stale and they got the number 2 recruiting class in the Big Ten?
Oh, so now you're
So
coming
you can't say.
I thought
No, what I'm saying is he brings in great players, and they don't produce to the level of beating Ohio State and Michigan State on a consistent basis. So they're not technically stale. They're getting great kids to come in here and play. Jim Harbaugh's not coaching them up like Nick Saban is doing in Alabama. You've had way too many assistant coaches leave Michigan. Way too many. And you know what that is? That's a problem. Tyrone Wheatley didn't want to leave Michigan, but Jim Harbaugh mistreated him. So, yeah, I'm going to leave if you're going to mistreat me. I'm going to go to the NFL and coach Jacksonville. And now he's at Morgan State as the head coach. That's Jim Harbaugh's fault because he's a micromanager. He has a self-esteem issue, and he doesn't know how to treat his coaches. Just look at all the coaches who've left, and that proves my point.
Tell me what you really feel, Perry Farrell.
Well, I mean, I can echo some of that. I mean, I've talked to some Wolverines reporters, and behind the scenes, they say that a lot of parents of recruits have been kind of turned off by Harbaugh, just because of, sometimes he, when he loves a kid, he loves a kid, but when he's on the fence, he doesn't really, I guess, show enough support or care or the type of attention that recruits want to have when they go visit a school or they get phone calls from a school and things like that. So, granted, I know Harbaugh is always trying to keep his recruiting class way up there because that's going to be huge for, all the boosters and everybody who supports him at Michigan. But, recruiting can be a nasty business sometimes.
What's the solution here, though, for U of M? Aside from firing Harbaugh, and I say what's the solution aside
He's
from
running
that?
a great 9-4 program.
Because here's the thing, guys. We can criticize him all day long, and I'm a critic myself, but he's not being fired.
There's no solution, Vito. There's no solution. They're not going to fire him. They're not going to fire him. He's not going to beat Ryan Day on a consistent basis. Ryan Day is going to always out-recruit him because the best Ohio kids are going to go to Ohio. There's no solution until he walks away.
I don't have my hand on the pulse as some people would have, and but yeah, I still think he's a very active, dynamic presence, and he's always going to get credit for that on the recruiting trail, for better or for worse. People like to make fun of his sleepovers and things like that.
That was funny, and I think ridiculous too. But I guess it worked a little bit.
Yeah, he's jumped into pools with recruits and all that other kind of stuff. He's willing to pull the stops to get the kids that he wants. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have my hand on the pulse of it, but I think that there's a lot more to maybe that Harbaugh recruiting landscape than people realize because they recruit a ton of kids. And a lot of people can get rubbed the wrong way if they don't get the right attention.
And then, here's the thing, too. You guys know this better than me from covering high school sports for as long as you both respectively have. But how about these non-committable offers, which Michigan has been guilty of? And it's not just Michigan. We're going to throw Michigan, I guess, under the bus here because we're talking about them. But all these schools do it. Can you guys reflect upon that, too, and how it probably tarnishes relationships with these recruits over time?
Well, you've had a lot of kids leave Michigan.
Which has been like an epidemic lately.
They've gotten
it seems
disillusioned with Harbaugh, and they've left. You have a lot of kids that have left there because he wears on you. He can only take so much of Jim Harbaugh. And if you look at the coaches who've left, the players who've left, I need a dynamic winner. I don't need a dynamic personality. I need a guy that's going to beat Ohio State. As a Michigan graduate, and for the amount of money Jim Harbaugh is making, he's been woefully inept and extremely disappointing because he can't beat his rival, and he can barely beat Michigan State. So what are you? You're a mid Big Ten level program. You got Michigan State, Penn State, Wisconsin, every year Iowa that you have to go against, on the field, and he's not getting it done.
And here's the thing. Purdue's on the rise, right? Minnesota is. Indiana is. So Harbaugh's coaching perhaps at the wrong time, too. So, I mean, he's becoming a middling head coach at a middling program in the Big Ten. And they're getting recruits, but they're not winning nearly enough, Jared.
Yeah, and gosh, what the heck is Kentucky doing getting recruits from Michigan?
How are they? And Oak Park studs, right? Justin Rogers, big lineman, who could be at Michigan State once again, too, and he's going to Kentucky. It's impressive.
Just looking at Michigan's recruiting history under Harbaugh, when he got that recruiting class that had Donovan Peoples-Jones. I mean, he was one of their first 5-star guys they've had at Michigan at the wide receiver position in forever. And that was a great class. I mean, Michigan fans, I was excited for that. I was expecting a lot of development. So many of those kids had left, graduated early, when they probably shouldn't have. Like, I think Peoples-Jones would have benefited from one more year of
Didn't live up to the bill, did he?
But here he is going off to the NFL draft. His stock has, gone a little down a bit in recent weeks. But, it's just you expected those kids to be developed, from him to hold on to them and, start churning out those big wins that we all expected. That's the point of bringing in top recruits, is to develop them into top college football players. But we haven't necessarily seen the fruits of that. I mean, occasionally there's some good kids here and there that, break the mold a little bit. But, I mean, the trend is like, man, that was such a great recruiting class, one of the best ones I think they had, especially maybe it's just because I'm at Homer and there's a lot of in-state kids, but it was a damn good class. And the fact that, we haven't really seen any results from it is a bit concerning.
And so, speaking of DPJ and him underachieving, who I think he could still be an exciting player at the next level.
No.
I think also the coaching and offensive scheming, but really quick, no 100-yard game from him. No 1,000-yard season from him. And people expected that, at least a few 100-yard games, right? Like, on one hand, you could have said, okay, he was going to do that, right? Have 5 100-yard games for himself during his time at Michigan, and not even one, Perry.
Jared and I covered him a lot when he was at Cass Tech, and he was explosive with breakaway speed. You never really saw that at Michigan enough to say, okay, now you can go pro because you're that good. I don't know, 5th round?
They're saying 4th, 5th. Mel Kiper just came out and said that, 4th to 5th round.
At that level, I'd have rather stayed in school another year to try to work on my game. And I don't blame him 100% for what he was at Michigan, but I certainly wouldn't have come out because 5th round, I mean, what's the point? You're not talking about a whole lot of money.
So Harbaugh and these guys have not coached up these prospects enough to have them fulfill their promise, right, expectations. So what does Michigan turn to now? So it's about firing Harbaugh, I know. Okay, ultimately, Perry for sure thinks, I know you kind of do as well, Jared. Who's the next guy then? Who's the alternative for Michigan that can be hired, feasibly hired, you think?
Well, that's the thing. That's why I think Harbaugh is going to stick around, because I don't think there's really any great options out there for him that can step into his position and have the results of the ridiculous expectations that are expected. There is no guy that's more like Michigan-based and really that taking on that Michigan man persona than Harbaugh. I think he's around for a while. They've invested a lot of money into him. They've invested a lot of expectation into him, and Michigan's not a program that will cut the cord for a guy who is still winning, 8 to 10 games a year. I mean, when you have a guy like Rich Rod and Brady Hoke that start having losing records, that's when, administration starts losing their mind. But if he can continue to win, bring in money, bring in recruits, bring in, the players that people get excited for and want to come to football games and see, I don't think he's going anywhere. And I don't even know who would be a viable replacement for him at this point. I mean, I don't think...
Josh Gaddis. Elevate him. I mean, what do we think about Josh Gaddis, by the way? Because I wanted to get your guys' feedback regarding him, too.
I feel like I haven't seen enough of Gaddis to really have an opinion on that. I don't know. What do you think, Perry?
Because, the offense was better than it had been under Harbaugh last year.
You'll have a offensive coordinator for the second straight year, which will be a plus. Yeah. Because after every year since, the offensive coordinator's left and he had to hire somebody else. So, first of all, Jim Harbaugh will leave when he's ready. They're not going to fire him. He'll leave when he's ready. They're going to be a mid-range program, 8-9 wins a year. That's it. He's not going to beat Ohio State on a consistent basis. All he can do is basically tread water, which is what he's doing now. There's not going to be any great 13, 14-0 season because something's missing. And if something's missing, you start at the top. So the problem is Jim Harbaugh. And it's just not going to change anytime soon because he's not going to change his ways. But you need to keep people in play every year. Like you got Josh Gaddis coming back for a second year. Don Brown's defense, I'm sorry. I'm not impressed.
He should be gone down.
You beat up on Indiana, you beat up on Purdue, you beat up on Air Force, but you can't beat Ohio State. Now, Ohio State runs circles around your defensive scheme for the last 3 years. 60 points. 50 points, and it's just ridiculous. So it's not going to change. So Michigan fans, we can sit back and look at the mediocrity, and that's about all we're going to get.
Look at their upcoming schedule for the upcoming season. Washington in week 1. And I was going, through it week by week. I think 8 wins. If they get more than 8, it's going to be impressive. It's going to be tough to do for Michigan based on their schedule, Jared.
Yeah, I mean, expectations going into Michigan seasons, I don't even expect them to win the Big Ten, and just where with Ohio State is at, and just with how hard their division is in the Big Ten. I mean, they got the stacked division of the Big Ten. So, yeah, it's completely normal to expect, an 8-win season. I mean, I think that's going to be par for the course. The fact that, a guy like going back to Lloyd Carr, I mean, toward the end of it, I mean, he won the national championship in 1997.
And he lived off of that for a while, right?
Well, I mean, but the thing is, he beat Ohio State. He was doing
he did
that
do
often.
that at least, right?
He would have, 8-win seasons, but still beat Ohio State. That's just something that could possibly shorten Harbaugh's lifespan here because, Michigan administration, Michigan fans have kind of gotten disillusioned about beating Ohio State because they just know they kick their butts every year. But the fact is like if he doesn't start beating Ohio State, administration is going to get a lot of pressure, I think, from boosters and people like that. So that might be the only thing that'll really shorten his stay at Michigan, I think. So
how about upsetting Ohio State? We know Ohio State gets more talent.
Okay, so
but what
next
happened
year,
to that upsetting?
Next year, Ohio State's going to beat Michigan at Ohio State. Okay, so they're 0-6. So then you come up to Ann Arbor in 2021, right? Mm-hmm. So if he doesn't beat them in 2021 at home, and what's up with the quarterbacks? Here's a guy who played quarterback, who coached quarterbacks at the NFL level. Shea Patterson was terrible. So what does that make McCaffrey and Joe Milton? If they couldn't beat Shea Patterson out, how good are they? And then you got McCarthy coming in, another highly touted kid. We need better quarterback play at the quarterback position at Michigan.
And guys, I thought, Jared, to you here, I thought Harbaugh was a quarterback guru and whisperer. And Jake Rudock's been his best passer at Michigan. Yeah, First year he took the job.
I was just about to say
he inherited Rudock, right? And Rudock's been the best passer, and Shea Patterson is number 2, but it's not saying much when he's number 2. And Shea really wasn't that great through his 2 years at U of M.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how his 2 best quarterbacks, because I would say Shea is his number 2.
Yeah.
His 2 best quarterbacks weren't even recruited into Michigan to begin their college football careers. They were transfers. So it's about time we start seeing some of his recruits at quarterback stepping up. I would like to see Joe Milton get some time. I also like McCaffrey's athleticism, but I like Milton's size for the Big Ten. I hear he has a rocket arm. And with
my brother loves him. Shout out to my brother real quick.
With Gaddis's offense, if they want speed and space, I mean, let them whip it around, man. Let them get it to the receivers.
But then these guys are going to transfer. If they don't play right, they're going to transfer.
He's 6'5", 230. He can throw the ball 70 yards in the air. If he doesn't win the job this year, don't expect Joe Milton to stay around. He'll be gone.
And that's the thing. He might be really good and be really good somewhere else.
Well, my thing is you couldn't beat Shea Patterson out. Is that Jim Harbaugh being
stubborn? I think stubborn.
Stubborn and misguided by playing a guy that wasn't as good as maybe the other 2 behind him? Because that doesn't say a lot about McCaffrey or Milton that they couldn't be Shea. Shea was terrible. So now you got a guy 6'5", 230 with decent speed and a big-time arm. And if he doesn't win the job from McCaffrey, he's gone. And then maybe McCaffrey's gone if he loses out to Milton.
Yeah, I had a lot of hope for Shea Patterson going into the last season. I thought his junior year, his first year starting with the team, I thought it was going to be a little bit of a work in progress. He showed some flashes of greatness, even showed some mobility. And then it kind of all just disintegrated for him this year. I mean, I was not impressed at all. I didn't see really any development, and that had me scratching my head about what is going on with developing these quarterbacks. And let's give some of the other guys some more playing time. I feel like every time McCaffrey would come in, he'd have to leave with some kind of injury. And I don't know if he just didn't want to go to Milton because he was a freshman and, he was learning Gaddis's system, but everyone was learning Gaddis's system last year. So I don't know what the deal is with the quarterback situation. I would like to see some of those Harbaugh recruits at quarterback, start getting significant playing time and getting significant wins.
So, guys, so many negatives regarding Harbaugh that we've already hit upon. But, I mean, to sum it all up, no coaching up of quarterbacks. Very little coaching up of offensive talent overall-wise. I mean, Zach Gentry's been your only guy draft. I mean, who's been really good offensively, that's been drafted in recent memory from U of M, that's been a skill player, right? He's lacking that, and then lacking the ability to pull off upsets. He hasn't upset anybody.
Well,
I mean, all those three things work against him.
Yeah,
big time.
if Jay Button hadn't tore his knee up in the bowl game, he'd probably be a top flight tight end. But most of the players who come out of there who've done well have been guys on the defense.
Yeah.
Devin Bush, I expect Lavert Hill to have a decent career. Delano Hill's playing in Seattle. And offensively, other than some linemen, their skill position players haven't shown up, and it hasn't translated into being good NFL players.
And how much does that fall upon Harbaugh then, guys? The lack of offensive talent that he has groomed during his time at U of M.
Oh, it falls on him squarely. I feel like, I mean, we've had changes in coaching staff, players come in and out, 5-star high school recruits transfer into the program from other places, and I mean, it's just been same old in my opinion. So, yeah, I feel like Harbaugh should take a lot of the blame about where the offense is at.
So we talk about all of this negativity regarding Michigan and Harbaugh.
I mean, it's not gloom and doom, trust me.
It's not, but
there are just holes there for the expectations that this program has. I mean, Michigan State obviously has a much longer way to go, but I feel like Michigan is just not getting past some of these obstacles that have been faced to them these last few seasons, which is the concerning thing. It's a little bit stagnant in terms of where they're going. I just feel like they're kind of this team, and this team is the way it's been. So,
no positive energy. I hate to keep bringing that up, but Michigan isn't going in the right direction. I mean, they're kind of staying stagnant, like Jared said.
Malik Carr told me the only reason that he even considered Michigan was because of Josh Gaddis. Not because of Jim Harbaugh, but because of Josh Gaddis. And that's from his mouth to my ears.
People like Gaddis, so pay the man. Maybe Josh Gaddis becomes your head coach one day.
No, that's not going to happen, Vito. But he's got to keep guys in place. And I'm not so sure this Don Brown scheme. You might have to think about changing your defensive system.
if Gaddis becomes a head coach, it's going to be somewhere else. So, and if his offense continues to improve at Michigan, which it needs the quarterback to do so, I think he will start getting looks from other programs. I mean, it's not going to be the first time that Michigan assistants have gone elsewhere to maybe get the same job with a better pay, or just gotten promoted at a different school. So, yeah.
You know, my problem is this offensive line. When they really need to run the ball and pound it against good teams, they can't do it. Yeah, they didn't do it against Indiana and Purdue and Northwestern, but they can't do it against Ohio State. And they didn't really pound the ball against Michigan State, and they don't do it against Penn State. So what's up with the offensive line play at Michigan?
Yeah, I miss like the Jake Long days, man.
And you know what?
That's been a long time, too.
Michigan State has been good recently. It's been the ground and pound in the defense. So Michigan has had the defense at times. Now the scheming with Don Brown hasn't been where it has, or where it should be in the past against big boys. Against Ohio State specifically has not been where it should be. But I want to go back to MSU because they had that 3-year period under Mark D'Antonio, 2013 through 2015, where at the very least MSU was relevant in beating Ohio State. So you got to give D'Antonio that kind of credit there, where credit is due, I think. And it full circle now to wrap up this conversation this week on Sundays with Dominic and Vito. Do you think we'll have the time where MSU topples Michigan again and rather consistently? Because I know it's going to take a little bit of time with Mel Tucker to build it back up because he's working with barely anything, right? But do you think we'll have the time where Michigan State experiences that 3-year period again and against Michigan and Ohio State? What do you think, Jared?
I don't know if it's going to get up to the level of D'Antonio. There's a lot that needs to happen for that. But for them beating Michigan, kind of as a Michigan fan, I kind of want to see that just because I like the competitiveness. You don't know who's going to win going into each matchup each year. I mean, it's always fun to beat the crap out of, little brother, as they say. But, it'd be good to see Michigan State get to that level. And I don't think it's going to happen very soon. Like, this recruiting class is pretty weak. He's got to establish new relationships. There's a lot to do. And Michigan State's going to have to suffer a bit, I feel like, in these couple of years. But they're going to have faith that this is going to work out long term because they can't blame Tucker for any of the pitfalls I feel like that will be coming within the first 2 years here, because they were just such in a bad place that they need someone to resurrect this program, and they got to give them time.
D'Antonio left state high and dry once again, pretty much in an abysmal state. No pun intended,
he
right?
screwed them.
He did, and when he left, like you said before,
when he left the day before signing day, that was his punch in the face to the whole Michigan State administration. And then to say they're gonna keep him on staff is and to get
$1 million for it, right?
That's
Come on,
not gonna happen. As soon as he gets found guilty of perjury, he'll be walking out the door like the AD, the gymnastics coach, and Larry Nasser did.
Back to the original topic, though, Perry, for you to answer now. Do you think Michigan State will get back to the day eventually, though, the next 3, 4, 5 years, where Michigan State can start toppling U of M again like it did during that 3-year period with D'Antonio?
Yeah, if Harbaugh doesn't change what he's doing and get this team to the next level, yeah, it's better than Rich Rod and it's better than Brady Holt, but it's still mediocre. So, yeah, he's got a chance if he has a good staff, if he has a good solid base, a foundation of a program, then he can do it, because Jim Harbaugh's not going to change, and the results have been more than disappointing.
Guys, I'll leave you with this now. Back to D'Antonio. Really, really quick here to wrap up this week's episode. Actually, wrap it up now. Mark D'Antonio's lasting legacy. What is it? What do you guys think? Perry, you just brought up...
It was better before the last 3 years than it is now. I mean, he's probably one of the top 2 Michigan State coaches of all time, him and Duffy Daugherty. I'll put him above George Perlis, who I had to deal with personally. Oh, my God. And God rest his soul. But he was probably the second best coach. He brought Michigan State to a level where it was competitive and then some against Michigan. But then the last 3 years, he basically tainted his legacy.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I think Michigan State fans are going to remember him a lot more fondly than the rest of the country. However, I won't be surprised to see somewhere way down the line where, there's some kind of wing or building named after him, because, I mean, he was just that successful with them throughout most of his career. I know they fell flat on their face sometimes, in the college football playoff. But I mean, they won Big Ten championships, in the title game that they have now, and I think his legacy is going to be remembered mostly positively at Michigan State. I mean, things could definitely change with all the legal stuff that's happening now, but with the way it stands, looking at what he did with the football program, yeah, I won't be surprised to see the Mark D'Antonio athletic training facility or something in the future there. So
he spent over a decade at State, won 114
He's
games.
done more at Michigan State than Jim Harbaugh's done at Michigan, bottom line. He's done more.
Can at least say that, despite D'Antonio in the past 3 years, right? D'Antonio still deserves some credit. I mean, he went to a Final Four. Michigan hasn't done that. Michigan State's won a Big Ten championship game. Michigan hasn't done that under Harbaugh. So you can diss D'Antonio a ton, and I get it. It's deserved. And how he left, right?
I'm not trying to diss him. I'm just saying, like, there's potentially things here that are going to, well...
or however you want to phrase or label it, but still, right? Critiquing them, but bring up the positives, and I think we're playing it fair with them here, too.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't the perfect person, I feel like, but, I mean, for what he did in terms of just pure coaching... I mean, he can say a lot more than the last, 3 Michigan coaches that they've had. So, and that's going to grind a lot of gears for Michigan fans, because, I mean, D'Antonio was doing it with lesser recruiting classes, in my opinion. So, the way he was able to at least develop players, and turn out winning teams with, kind of a lot of the homegrown backyard kids. I think it's disappointing for Michigan fans to, see that, because they have to admit that Harbaugh hasn't really developed the players. So, I mean, just in terms of pure football, D'Antonio is going to be remembered fondly. So.
D'Antonio, for a while there, got the Michigan-based dudes, but also the Ohio-based kids. And I think we're still getting that in his final years. But
he was at Ohio State, so
had that connection already built in for himself. And I think of Darquez Denard, a kid like that who he coached up, and an endless amount of guys where it truly was applicable to him. The phrase of less was more. Less was more for Michigan State, and he made it happen and upset teams when the team was better than him, such as Ohio State. He went in there with Tyler O'Connor, right?
Yeah.
When you're a backup, and beat Ohio State.
Well, I don't think he went in with the mindset of less is more. He just kind of accepted what his situation was.
It made it happen for him, right?
Yeah.
I agree. And I think that's the legacy And we'll leave it at that for Mark D'Antonio and for our discussion on this week's episode of Sundays with Dominic and Vito. For Jared M. Purcell and the Professor Perry A. Farrell, I am Vito Geronimo Churco signing off for this edition of Sundays with Dominic and Vito. Guys, thank you very much. I'll talk to you again soon, and have a great day, too.
Thanks for having me, man.
And that was Perry A. Farrell and Jared M. Purcell. Yes, I did get his middle initial as well. Don't know what his middle name actually is, but I digress here as I want to transition into my third guest now on this week's episode of Sundays with Dominic and Vito. And that would be multi-time state champion football head coach at Detroit King, Tyrone Spencer. And he is going into his 5th season as the head man at King. And comes into the year with a ton of talent on both sides of the football, as is the norm at King at this point. Now, he's an alum of the school and a former assistant, so he's coached a ton of talent over the years. So, along with talking about a current player of his in the highly talented 4-star safety Jalen Reed from the class of 2021, we also dive into the topic of who's the best defensive player that he has seen in his time as at least an assistant coach on the staff at King. All of that and more with Tyrone Spencer right now. Tyrone Spencer, Detroit King head football coach and track coach as well now. Coach Spencer, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Good. So you're in the offseason with football, but coaching track. We were talking a little bit off air about that. How did you exactly get involved with coaching track now here at Detroit King?
Really, just my athletic director just asked me would I come out there and do it because I had a lot of influence with the kids, and he wanted the track program to stay strong as far as the boys go. So I decided to do it, and it's been pretty fun ever since.
And like I said, we're in the football offseason right now, and for everybody, including Michigan State, who just hired its new head coach in Mel Tucker, who was a head coach for 1 year at Colorado, went 5-7, but was a GA at Michigan State way back in the day, had the ties to Mark D'Antonio, and now he's the new head man. And there was a little bit of controversy with how Michigan State got him and him leaving Colorado and kind of blindsiding them in so many words. Right. But I wanted to ask you now, Coach, and you kind of putting your analyst hat on here really quick. Right. What do you think about that hire from Michigan State?
Well, I think it's a pretty good hire for them for what they had that was available out there. How will he fare here? We'll see. I know he's been here. I know he's putting together a good staff. Got Courtney Hawkins in here as receiver coach. Got Tress coming back. He also has Burton back here. And I believe Butler Benton, who's in the recruiting office from Detroit, he went to King, graduated in 2004. He's there. So he's putting together a good group of guys. The thing is going to be, what is he going to do with Michigan and recruiting here? I've never heard from Colorado or Mel Tucker before. So I know some guys from Cass have been offered, and there maybe some West Bloomfield guys, but I've never heard from any of their staff members or anything. So it'll be interesting to see how important Detroit is and Michigan, is to these guys.
Well, he got Jaron Mingham now, or at least he went to Colorado, yeah. Jaron. So that was one from Cass Tech. Yep. But like you said, from King, and then honestly, Coach, I was looking at the roster right now for Michigan State and King guys. I saw Tyreek Thompson. He's one of the guys. And that was it. There was one guy from King.
That's it.
So that screams to me, Coach, and we'll get into it right now, recruiting. And the city of Detroit and Michigan State missing out on recruits year in, year out. And recently, especially with your guys at King, Rashawn Williams going to Indiana, Penny Boone going to Maryland. So the impact.
Buford at Kentucky.
I mean, there's guys left and right. So it's about the impact now, right? Yeah. That Mel Tucker will have on recruiting in the city of Detroit. And as an African-American head man, I think it will pay dividends for Michigan State. What do you think, Coach?
I think it should, because we haven't had somebody that's been African-American coach there since with Bobby Williams. So I think there's a part there where there's somebody who these kids think are relatable to them, and at the same time still professional and wants to win. And so it'll be interesting, like I said, how it unfolds. I'm excited to kind of see where they want to go with the offense, the defense, and kind of see his philosophy and really how he feels about our kids. So I'm hoping that it gets on the right path because, like you said, there's been a lot of guys that have just been missing, just been kind of leaving the state with Justin Rogers and, Deion Buford. I mean, just like you said, Rashawn Williams, it's a lot of kids that are leaving. And those are some good ball players. They're leaving the state of Michigan, which before, probably like in the early 2000s, you didn't see guys leaving like the state often unless they didn't get offers from Michigan and Michigan State.
So, Coach, let's dive into it then a little bit further now. Why has it been happening with these 4 or 5-star guys, Buford, Boone, Williams? What do you think has been the reason behind that in recent memory?
Well, one is just these guys are really good recruiters. Steve Klingscale at Kentucky is a really good recruiter. Like, he knows probably who my young kids are right now. Like, just because he studies his stuff and he knows what it is, he builds relationships. It's all about relationship building. If you really, truly care and you know the coaches and you know the guys, it's going to mean something more and the kids can feel it. But when you pretend and it's not real, it's not genuine, the kids know and you can't hide it. Or if you're just kind of outdated, if sometimes it passes you by, you're older and it's like, hey man, it might be time to give it up, And so I think that's what you're seeing here with some of the guys just leaving and going to, Mike Loxley, which is another African American coach, head coach, but like going to see those guys and just trying to go play. I mean, going to Kentucky, that's in the SEC, that's only 5.5 hours away to go play some good ball.
Mark D'Antonio now, you brought up like a guy losing his ways maybe and having his best days pass him by. Mm-hmm. Some could argue that and have, right, about Mark D'Antonio at Michigan State with the losing starting to happen, stuff slipping for him, and the recruits slipping through and going to schools like Kentucky that would have been going to state and were going to state for a little bit. Yeah. Do you think he kind of ran his course and things became dry for Mark D'Antonio? And you would know as a coach here at King, with recruiting specifically. Do you think that affected him with recruiting?
I really don't. It's funny because I don't blame D'Antonio. I blame the people around him. Let's just be honest. I mean, and I know the case is ongoing, but when Curtis was there, they were getting guys. The recruiting was on point. When he leaves, it wasn't on point like it was. That's all due to who you have around you, who do you trust doing the recruiting for you, and where are they putting their emphasis at. And I think just some of the guys he had around him. And I would ask some of my players, hey, when you went to Michigan State, what did you think? Some of them would just say, like, Coach, I like it, but some of the coaches, it's just kind of dry. And so, like, that's not necessarily D'Antonio, but the people around you, you gotta kind of change that. And when you don't, that's what you get. Because there's a lot of young, fired up coaches out here going to get kids.
That's what it is. I mean, a guy like you, but at the collegiate level, Mel Tucker now. He's an expert recruiter, so-called. Mark D'Antonio, no energy. Yeah. Where's the enthusiasm? Right. And maybe he lost his energy and enthusiasm after coaching at State for so long and getting older and older. Yep. But I can see where that affected recruiting with your guys here at King and other schools as well, Coach.
And when you don't have it, you got to have somebody who does. So if you don't have it and you're going to sit back and maybe Joe Paterno it, like as far as just sit back, then let somebody else go get it. But you still got to have that same energy. I remember when Lloyd Carr used to come in our school when I was at King. He was still coming around. He might not have been real energetic, but he was there. He was showing his face around, and it meant something to him to get guys from this area, And I think that's what they have to do. I think both schools, Michigan, Michigan State, I think just have to have a point person here who people respect, who people are like, all right, we trust our kids. Like when we had like when Michigan used to have Fred come into the city of Detroit to come get kids, it was somebody that we could trust and feel like, okay, they'll take our kids. Or Soup Campbell, like now it's like just whoever will just come, like depending on what position, and it's like you just want a guy here who like you can trust and really like to speak to your kids and really try to get them up there.
A guy based in the city, maybe has prior experience in the city or in the Midwest, and builds relationships, right? Doesn't just come out for the one day, says hello because this kid's a top dude and elite, but actually builds that relationship.
Builds
the
relationship.
Time for that.
You're going to come see us even if we don't have a player this year. Like Soup Campbell, when he was at Michigan, then he went to Iowa, he went to Bowling Green. Like, he would still come around no matter what level he was on, and like you still know him, and there's still that familiarity where it's like, okay, this is a guy that, we trust and will like send our kids to. So, you just look for that. And they have to get back to that, like, if they want to get the kids, because right now everybody is like building a relationship. I mean, you got to even look at Minnesota, man. Minnesota up there, they're winning now. You got Fleck is a fired up coach, and when he was at Western Michigan, people still remember him. So he'll come down here and get some kids, like if so soon if they don't like get it together.
So are those schools going to topple Michigan State? Have they already toppled Michigan State? Even Michigan. I mean, even to bring up Michigan, who's at a better level. I know that right now gets more high end recruits than has for a long, long time.
For sure.
But you said PJ Fleck, Mr. High Energy. He's winning now at Minnesota. They play Michigan this upcoming season. Can you imagine if Minnesota beats Michigan, what that does for recruiting for Minnesota, who's already on the rise with getting recruits too?
Yeah, that's going to be big, man. That's going to be very interesting because I know one of my, like Jalen Reed, he talked about wanting to go to Minnesota just to check it out. And, it's just it's interesting that Jalen Reed doesn't have a Michigan offer either. Like, I don't, like, that's USC, Oregon, Florida, Georgia.
All over the place, down
Tennessee,
south and way far from here.
That's just, but, hey, man, it is what it is with that. I don't know. I don't see. To me, he's the best defensive player that I've seen in the state right now. So I like him a lot. Of course, I'm a little biased, but, I just don't see how he hasn't. And even if it's just from a political standpoint, you don't have a Michigan offer. It's kind of like, it's almost a slap in the face a little bit,
I would think a player like him maybe would be slighted.
Yeah.
I mean, I maybe would think that everybody else is offering me.
Certainly
I know
is.
how good I am. He knows how good he is. I know he's a confident dude.
4.5. He's running 4.5s, and he's like, I don't have that. And so, hey, at the end of the day, that's something that's going to drive him, though. So I love it because it's really going to push him and drive him, have a chip on the shoulder like, okay, well, I'm not all the way there yet. Let me just keep moving and doing what I got to do.
So the assistant coach are essential. And those guys coming in and visiting your players.
For sure.
So we can say Michigan State maybe had a problem with that recently too, with the old guys standby still being there and being dry once again. It goes back to that, like lacking the energy and enthusiasm.
Yep.
And Antonio, as a leader of the program, the CEO, as being the head coach, he never did anything with those guys. He just shuffled the deck.
Yeah,
right?
And it's hard because those are his friends. Those are his coaches. Those are his friends. And so, like, you have, because they're great guys. Coach Bowman's a great guy. But how does Coach Bowman relate to a Deion Buford who's 18 years old with dreads and stuff? And Bowman's kind of like, a little older white guy that's kind of, he has to get in tune with it, and that's what I mean when I say may pass certain guys by. But they're all great guys. It's just that you have to know, like, all right, if I want my program to go, I got to bring in some fresh, younger guys to come in here and get the job done. Because I think he still could have done it. I think that Antonio still could have done it if he really would have just had to do what he had to do. But it's hard to do it when it is your friends. It's just hard. Because Coach D, at heart, is a good person. You know what I mean? He is. It's just how it ended.
But he had his cronies.
Yep.
And it's hard to get rid of your friends.
Yep.
Right? It's hard to tell them, hey, can you
Yep.
go by the wayside? I got a new guy coming in who's a fresh voice, offers a fresh perspective,
It's hard.
and is better for recruiting.
Yep.
Michigan, though, hiring Josh Gaddis. I think of that now, what we're talking about with Michigan State becoming stale with its assistants. Michigan finally, Jim Harbaugh in his fifth year, hires Josh Gaddis,
Yep.
who can recruit too, can coach up the offense as the OC, but also can recruit, most importantly,
Yeah,
coach.
he
And
can.
you talk about that impact that he's made so far, you
he
think?
was good at I remember when he was at Penn State, because we had a clinic here. Their staff came here and had a clinic, and he did a phenomenal job. But he's a guy that definitely can recruit. He will recruit. And he's a good coach, So that was good for him. And it's good to see what you want to see, too. Let's just be honest, like you do have these kids who these guys want. And there's a lot of African-American kids that's going to play big-time college football. You do want to see some guys that look like them, that have some power. You know what I mean? That's an offensive coordinator. That's a defensive coordinator. Not just a guy that's just in a position coach who doesn't have any say-so. Because that actually helps your school, you know what I mean, when you are actually recruiting. Like, oh, okay, that guy has some, whatever he said, kind of like the coach believes that and like honors that. It means something.
Well, I think of West Bloomfield now, who recently had all these head coaches. You probably saw the photos, right, with Ron Bellamy, the head man there at West Bloomfield.
Yep, a
Nick
lot of
Saban
coaches
came
coming
in.
through
All
there.
these guys came in. D'Antonio, I believe, came in as well. Jim Harbaugh wasn't there, though. But Josh Gaddis was.
Yep.
So how impactful do you think it is when you have a head coach actually visit, or at the very least an OC or DC, like you were saying, Coach?
Oh, yeah. That's when the head coaches come, it's important. It really means something. It shows like, okay, they want one of my players really bad. And it's the utmost respect, And so when the head, if the head coach is out, and let's say the head coach is at Cass and the head coach don't come to King, I'm like, man, why the head coach? You know what I mean? Why he didn't come to King? And so I think it's very important for somebody to come out and like show their face, if they can. But even more important when it's the DC, when it's the OC, when it's the head coach, like it means something, to really see those guys come here. So we don't take it for granted whether it's Division II, III, Division I, 1AA. Like if you're a head coach and you come out here, like, that's the utmost respect.
And how about these head coaches now from all these different schools, any level of collegiate football, building the relationships with you now as a head coach at a high school?
Yeah.
How important do you think that is from high school to high school? Because I know you guys do have an influence and make an impact on these kids and where they end up going typically too.
Yeah, it's everything because you definitely want to have those relationships because you never know when. So Kalamazoo College comes in, okay, the head coach. I may not have had a kid for him this year, but I had one 2 years ago, So it's like, they just want to keep popping in and building those relationships because you never know when you'll have somebody. Cornell came in here. Well, in the class of 2019, we had a bunch of kids who could have went to Cornell from Sauce Gardner, Rich Miller. It was a bunch of those guys, but they ended up going to the MAC and the Cincinnati and those type of schools. So he's going to keep coming back in here until he finds a guy that fits him as well. So I think it's just cool that those guys just come in and want to build those relationships because, again, you never know when you'll get a kid that'll fit your program.
And then really it's about, fitting the culture at the next level too, right? So based on your program, what you guys emphasize, can it translate for that kid, right, at the next level? And it's about, I guess, that the head coach too and what he instills.
Yeah.
So I think of that as well.
That's really important. That's why, when people look at certain things like, well, why did he go here? Why did Rashawn Williams go there? That coach over there in Indiana used to be a high school coach. Some of the messages he preached, like Leo, love each other. Like that, those are principles and stuff that people need in life, And so when you look at where your players are going, you want to make sure they're going somewhere where they are going to grow as people because this football thing don't last long. And so that's our goal is to get them somewhere where they can grow as people. Because football, man, they may play, they may not. It's more so about what you're going to do afterwards and becoming great people and maturing. So that's what we try to do, try to put them in the best situation to win.
You need the coaches that do embrace you at the next level then.
Yep.
And I think of Mel Tucker, now back to him and talking about him being the new hire there at Michigan State.
Yeah.
The players have loved him in the past. So I'm thinking that culture is going to be important for what he builds, and I think he can build something positive there at Michigan State. What are your thoughts on that, Coach?
From the people that I reached out to a couple coaches that I got relationships with to see about Mel Tucker, and they've told me he's a real genuine guy. And even to hear the people at Colorado are upset, I think that's kind of a good thing. If they're upset, that means that they lost something that they thought was really good. And so I think that this can be a really good situation for Michigan State, for us here in the state of Michigan. So, like I said, I haven't talked to him yet. Can't wait to really see, that how he wants to do this and how we want to have this relationship and build it from here. So, it should really like be good. I think it mends the stuff that happened. Even when you think about the Vance and the Corley situation at Michigan State, I think bringing in those fresh coaches in here, it kind of just would turn over a new leaf.
How long do you think he gets to build his culture at Michigan State?
Man, I hope he gets a fair shot to build it because you got to get this guy 4 years to get his guys in and to really do what's needed. He has to have that he has to have that go-getter coach to come in here and get the kids. It really can't be a rookie. He's going to have somebody in here that has some experience that's like, hey, we got to have him. We want to have him. I don't care if it's Mel Tucker himself. Somebody has to be here to get these kids because there's a lot of guys that are doing really good. You got Mike Hart that's been in here, got some Chippewa Valley guys, some King guys, Lemuel Watley, Clink Scale. It's some guys in here, man, that have ties that do a great job. So he got to have somebody here really good.
And to recruit, I think you need to be at your college, be the head coach there for 4 years, right? Yeah. To bring in your own recruits, to establish your own culture.
You have to. And if you see a trend and it's going up and they're doing a great job, then you have to do nothing but give him that respect because it's some things he has to clean up. Some things is going to be out of his control. like the campus environment at Michigan State, they got to clean that up from the outside. You know what I mean? That's not going to be on him. But the stuff that he can do and what he can control, they got to give him time to get that going and get the right people and to get the kids with character that can play hard, that love football. He has to be able to get that in.
And he got a nice long-term contract and a nice size contract to, make it work there at Michigan State in so many words too.
He has enough for the strength and conditioning staff. He has enough to get the best assistant coaches. So, it really can be a good thing. It could be the guy to do it. I just hope he has the time to do it, and hopefully he gets the kids. And like I said, if he's talking good to me and it's sounding like I'm all for it, getting that relationship back established and getting that pipeline going.
The only thing is now, with the time factor, he only spent one season at Colorado.
Yep.
There's the controversial end of the spectrum with him and him leaving Colorado, kind of blindsiding them. What do you think about that with coaches that end up doing that? And I get it because they're benefiting themselves. He got more money to coach at State.
Yeah,
but what do you think about that, Coach?
I think the guy at heart really did not want to leave. I think he didn't want to leave.
Because he said at first he wasn't going to go to State.
He said I wasn't going.
Yeah.
But if somebody tells you if you're making $2.3 million and somebody says, look, man, we're going to get you at $6 million, that's kind of hard to turn down. It's just hard. We know we say that money is not an option, but for somebody to say we're going to double your salary, we're going to increase your assistant coaches and the weight room staff, that's what you want as a coach, to be able to say, okay, we're going to go recruit, we're going to go do these things. So it's kind of hard. I know people feel bad about it, that he can just leave like that, but most people would leave their jobs, man. I'm not going to lie. I would leave King if somebody was like, hey, come over here.
That much money.
Double your salary.
Doubling your salary.
Hey,
and
man.
Millions of dollars.
Yeah.
That as well.
Man.
So
That's but it's part of the business, and you got to know that. And I think we always try to educate our student athletes on pick the school based on you like the campus, you like the area, you like the culture. Not necessarily I just like that coach. You know what I mean? And so, and that's what you gotta kind of have to do. And so that's what we try to do with our kids, because unless it's like Kirk Ferentz, you know what I mean, at Iowa and those type of guys, the guy at Northwestern,
Pat Fitzgerald too.
Anybody can up and go, but some of these guys are going to always be here, and so you just gotta know that that's something that can happen.
How long do you think it takes for Tucker to start making a dent on recruits here and to start offering guys from King, from Cass Tech?
Yeah, hopefully soon, because I seen there's been some offers made to some guys in California and Texas. And I know those are probably guys that he had at Colorado already on their board. But, yeah, he needs to reach out to some of our guys to make sure, if he hasn't already. I know, like I said, none of my guys have talked to him. But need to probably do it pretty soon. It's important to reach out and make sure that we establish and have that. But the only thing is, they want to see what the product on the field is going to look like too. So they can do this thing where they recruit and offer these guys and have a lot of guys that on their board, but eventually everybody want to see what is the product going to look like. Like, what kind of team are you going to have? And they got to show grit. They got to show toughness. They got to show that they're not giving up. And I think if they do that, he'll have some guys. You know what I mean? He'll have some guys that'll rock with him.
And you brought up Jalen Reed before. Now, the stud DB, class of 2021 kid, who I've seen now through Legacy Football, obviously, too, and what he's doing with that team. So he looks impressive. Now, where do you think he compares among other DBs that you've coached in the past here at Detroit King? And you've coached some really good DBs in the past.
Yeah.
Where does he rank among the best ones that you've coached here at Detroit King, Coach?
Yeah, he's probably because we've had a lot of corners go, like when I look at my wall and I see Avonte Maddox and Lavert Hill, Ambry Thomas.
And all you have to do is just look at your walls here in your classroom.
And so we had some great guys there. But like him, he as a safety, he puts me in the mind, like him and probably like Marvin Grant as those safeties, probably some of the better safeties I've had. And they're kind of similar. But Jalen's one of those just hard hitting. Got a great work ethic. I'm excited for him. I could see him going to the next level in the NFL too if he does what he needs to do in college and stuff like that. But real smart football player that can do a lot of things.
So high IQ, can be a ball hawk, hard-hitting guy. Can he play cornerback and safety? I know he's a safety. I said quarterback earlier, but safety for sure is what he's playing right now.
He can cover. He can cover. He has great cover skills. And that's really been developed, and that's what I'm liking about him. He's running track. He's doing all those little things, and so when you do those things, man, good things come to you. So it's going to be interesting where he goes.
Offers coming in by the minute. I mean, last night before we recorded this podcast, I saw some offers that came in for him. Tennessee and who else? USC recently too.
USC, Oregon, and so he's visited Georgia already. I know he's supposed to be going to Florida sometime soon, but yeah, he will actually. Right now, it doesn't look like he's staying in the state. But like I said, we don't know. Haven't really talked to Mel and them yet. So, we'll see how that – because he did like the DB coach. He's not there no more because the staff was gone. But he did like that DB coach at Michigan State. So, we'll see.
And no offer from Michigan yet.
No offer from
So,
Michigan.
if he gets that offer, what do you think that does for him and his mindset when it comes to all of these offers that he has received so far as a recruit?
I don't know. It's going to be hard because, Michigan just lost their safeties coach. He went to Ole Miss. Well, as soon as he went to Ole Miss, he offered Jalen. So I think Jalen's mindset is, well, if this guy was at Michigan and he went to Ole Miss, he's the DC at Ole Miss, and he offered me. But Michigan didn't offer me. He's kind of, I don't know. I think he probably feels some type of way about it. But, again, it being said, it's a new safety coach there now. So maybe I don't know. I really don't know how recruiting is a funny thing. We've sent Michigan. 2 starting corners were from King at Michigan. So I don't know what the issue is and what the delay is on the. I really couldn't tell you, but I hope that. I feel like we had a good relationship with Don Brown, who was the defense coordinator. Of course, Coach Harbaugh has been in here, so. I don't know how that would happen if he were to get a Michigan offer. I think that he would definitely feel like, okay, kind of stamped as far as an accomplishment. But I think that he still would feel slighted because he's just
because it's been this long. Everybody else has offered him and their mother, it seems like, outside of U of M.
His sophomore tour, going into his junior year, his sophomore year, he runs a 4.6. He covers well, and he's he didn't get anything. He's still waiting, and he still didn't get anything. Now he's running 4.5. So, he's just kind of well, what's wrong with me? He kind of looking at himself what's wrong with me? Man, it may not be what's wrong with him. Maybe it's something that they're looking for. Maybe they want a longer kid. I don't know what it is. Maybe they want 6'2" instead of 6 foot. I don't know. But at the end of the day, Jalen Reed's going to be fine, man. I think Texas called me about him, hey, coach, we want to get him down here. He has family in Texas, so it'll be fine, man. But it's just unfortunate that you would think that, your local schools would definitely be beyond that. So.
And, Coach, as you know, there's a big-time emphasis on defense here at Detroit King. I know what you guys coach up and what you've produced over the years.
Defense.
But right now as well, and not just Jalen Reed, but Rashad Hench, Aaron Lamar, countless other dudes that I can name off and you could talk about right now with me. And with that being said, who's the best defensive player that you've ever coached in your time at Detroit King? And you mentioned some other guys that have played for you in the past, too.
Right.
Lavert Hill, Ambry Thomas has, Avonte Maddox.
Yeah.
So I know it's hard for you to pick one,
hard.
right?
It's hard. It's funny.
And maybe you can break it down per position almost, too, on defense.
We put together an all-decade team from 2010 to 2020. And we were just playing around as coaches, just who would be the all-decade corners. And actually, Avonte Maddox was as good of a corner as he was a dynamic receiver. So he kind of made the all-decade team as a receiver, and it gave us room to put people at the corner position.
I like it.
But defensively, man,
be hard for you guys.
It's
I could see
tough.
you guys having just a long, long time going through all those players.
Because even Jalen Embry was good here, and then you had Ambry, and then when Lavert came that one year, Lavert was National DB of the Year, in the country. He had 7-8 interceptions. Man, he was phenomenal. Man, we had a lot of good guys here, man. But I probably would say if we're talking about just a defender, I would probably say
Really on the hot seat here.
Yeah,
Thought-provoking
really hot seat,
topic, I know.
I mean, because even Ahmad Gardner.
But you could go back and forth,
freshman
right? Like you are right now, and you
Yeah.
have with your coaching staff.
Yeah.
An all-decade team,
It
you have how many
was-
players in just that decade, right, to pick from?
Because people were arguing. So, like, our it's 4 DBs.
And so,
So
it
you're
seems like it's
trying to
all
pick-
about DBs,
Yeah.
emphasis is huge on that, and you guys have
Yeah.
produced so many great
Yeah.
DBs,
Yeah.
more than any other position on defense.
Because now you got people saying, well, Ahmad Gardner, he's a freshman All-American. He's at Cincinnati. So,
So he's gotta be in
Ahmad
consideration
Gardner,
now,
so they're
right?
Like, Ahmad Gardner. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, what about, you forget Ambry and Levert. And so it's just, it's hard. And then I'm telling you who else was good, too. He don't get a lot of credit for it. Donnie Corley played DB for us, even though
he was dynamic.
At receiver.
More
he
known
was
as a wideout,
DB
but-
for us, yeah. So we had some guys. There was another guy I had, Maurice Johnson. He rest in peace. He's no longer here with us, but Maurice Johnson was a heck of a corner for us. Man, we've had some guys that Marvin Grant. You know what I mean? You gotta look at Marvin Grant, and those are some guys that just played 3 years for us that were good. I think Ray Williams was good. Ray is actually at Howard University. He played as a freshman, true freshman.
He was a Bison.
Yep, played really good. He was actually trying to, once the staff left, he was trying to leave, but he's just gonna probably stay down there and play. But yeah, man, I don't know, the best defensive player.
Because, we're just talking about DBs and secondary dudes.
Right.
You could maybe even pick a defensive lineman or
Yeah.
linebacker, but it seems like, once again, the guys that I can think of myself
Yeah, we're kind
are
of
all
like DBs. 'Cause we had some.
it's been DBU at the high school level over here at King.
Yeah, we've had some, man. Because our defensive linemen, we've had some good defensive linemen that end up going. I think Eshawn Carter probably would be our biggest one, recruit wise, as far as going somewhere, going to school. But man, I don't know. It's hard,
And look at these guys again on your walls here in your classroom, right?
And then Tyreek Thompson's junior year here was scary. He was like a freak. So it's hard, man. But I think with Lavert Hill having them 7-8 picks, that's kind of. He winning that DB National DB of the
And what
Year
he's done in
award,
college
and
has
what
been
he's
pretty
done.
good, obviously, too.
Lavert is just the kind of guy you got to coach him differently. So I remember when we played De La Salle that year, great game. I'm thinking we won 12-10 or something. He got beat. The receiver beat him. He kind of was down. His head was down, and I grabbed him, put my arm around him, and said, "Hey, you got to make a play because I ain't putting nobody else in." And once I did that, he had 2 interceptions, and one was to win the game. And I think that kind of kid, you got to just know how to coach your kids, and everybody's different. Some people need that tough love, and some people need that, "Hey, I got you, let's go." And so, I'll never forget some of the things he done. But I'll never forget the first time I put Ambry Thomas in the game, his 10th grade year. The first time I put him in the game on defense, he took an interception back, 80 yards.
On the first
for a
snap.
touchdown. The first play.
Against two.
Port Huron.
Wow, you'll never forget that. He'll never forget
I put
that,
him in.
too.
It was a tight end over there.
Uh-huh.
It was a tight end. He was on top of a tight end. It was 2 receivers on the other side. Somebody runs a post. He opens up to the post, picks it off, takes it down the sideline, 80 yards for a touchdown. And I'm like, I just put this kid in
This
the game.
guy's legit, man.
10th grade, I just put him in the game.
Keep him in,
his
though.
first game of the season, his first snap, he goes in for a touchdown. I'm like, what the heck? Is this guy really like that? So, lots of good players, man. And, hopefully we can keep the trend up with some of the young guys that we got.
And Ambry, how good of a pro is he going to be? Levert now, he's going to be a good pro. How good of pros, those two guys specifically, because they're recent graduates of King.
Yeah, Bree graduated in June. Levert, we just went to his send-off before he went to go train.
It's time for the NFL draft for Levert Hill.
He's going to do good. He's going to get that 40 time now. He's fast. He's just naturally strong. Bree I remember seeing him. He turned himself into an All-American. And Bree's like the ultimate competitor. He's going to try to compete his butt off. He'll go somewhere and do really good. His mental toughness, Ambry, just separates himself. He was one of the best leaders I've ever had here. Because he was my first team when I took over in 16. So the first touchdown he had was in 14. That was his 10th grade year. But his senior year, when Harville died and I had to take over the program, Ambry just was one of the best leaders I had, man. There's him and Cepeda Phillips. They both played together. Cepeda was a linebacker. Those two guys, man. I I don't think since I've had that type of leadership. Maybe DeQuan Finn and those guys have kind of mimicked that Ambry Thomas stuff because they were under Ambry. That was their 10th grade year was Ambry's senior year. But, I mean, man, Ambry, that kid, man, leadership.
Off the charts, huh?
Off the charts.
So there's a reason for NFL teams to like him just based off of that.
Oh, yeah.
Aside from his skill set, right, what he offers to a team with that.
For sure. He's going to be a great locker room guy. He's very positive. He's not a negative guy. And he's going to play to the fullest, you know. He wants to always get better. He wants to learn the little nuggets and stuff. So we're going to try to get him up there with Avonte because Avonte been working out in, like, L.A., try to get him over there with him during spring break or something so he can get some workouts in.
And this year's going to be your 5th year now as a head coach at King coming up this season.
Yep.
What have you learned since 2016 to now?
I've learned that head coach has nothing to do with scheme and has nothing to do with plays or necessarily players. It has everything to do with leadership, culture, getting stuff done. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily like you're the head coach and what kind of scheme are you running. Like, has nothing to do with that. Like, it's all about the other things that you may not even like think of. And so just learning that and trying to get that established year in and year out is probably why we've been going to the championships and stuff like that. But that's definitely what I've learned. Like, it's not about just the talent all the time, you know, because we played Lowell. We were way more talented than Lowell, and they almost beat us. They had a culture. They had leaders. They had guys who that never quit attitude and mindset, and you have to establish that in your programs. De La Salle has that. They had that. You know what I mean? And like I can tell because when we scrimmaged them, the way they scrimmaged us, the way when we played them, the way we played, it was like nobody was quitting. And you can tell with those teams who has that. You know, there's certain teams that once you get up on them, they're gonna quit. There's certain teams you get up on them, they're gonna keep fighting. And so, like, you just learn as a head coach that's what it's all about, getting your guys prepared and ready.
So about being the CEO of the program, right?
Yep.
And managing the egos along the way, too, and the personalities.
Yep.
And some are more difficult to deal with than others. I bet you have realized along the way as well.
Yeah, it's definitely different. You got to coach guys differently. You have to talk to them differently. And they're not as, like, when I came out, I probably was a little bit more thick-skinned. Like we're in a more sensitive age now. You know, you say things and everybody kind of, you know, they feel some type of way about it. So you have to be careful with what you say to guys and what you say to some of the kids. And, you know, it's just how it is, man. It's just what it is.
It is. I mean, times have changed, right, with how you treat kids nowadays.
Sure. And people
athletically
in general,
right? Yeah, I was about to say, outside of the playing field, too.
Yeah, I mean,
definitely.
certain stuff you could say back in 1997, you can't say today, and it's just what it is. So I understand that. My staff understands that, and try to keep on producing good football.
Coach, with that being said, thanks for all the time. Always great talking to you, and good luck with track practice today and track season coming up.
Get it going.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Talk to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.